Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to King Ugly Crew again. This week, we will be discussing motorcycle accidents. We'll be discussing the accidents, the rides, and everything that we probably enjoy about motorcycles. But for the most part, we'll be focusing on the incidents or crashes that happened during those rides. So I'm going to kick it over to Case, Lonnon, and Griffith on this one. Dane will jump in later on, but this first story is going to be a fun one. Go ahead, guys.
So I just want to point out that yes, we talk about a lot of crashes and things that have gone wrong, but you got to remember how much we love to do the things we love to do. We all love to drive, we all love to ride, we all just love being on anything that has a motor, basically. So that's just the caveat I had to put in there.
Well, and how many miles we've put on all of these different vehicles without accidents of any type.
Come on, guys. We're all just terrible drivers.
That's
Terrible.
I was going to go with is how is Barron the least amount of the one car accidents? Because Barron always seems to be the car accident one.
Okay, car accidents, I've got a lot. It's motorcycle accidents, I don't have a lot. And I think that's just because God was looking out for me, because otherwise I'd be dead.
Yeah, fact.
So true. But let's get into the Grand Canyon. This thing was an awesome trip. Lonnon, go ahead and why did we go? Do you remember why?
Yeah, so it was Dad that started it. He was just like, "Hey, you know what? I think a good idea. We should go on a ride. We'll go down to Williams, and then we'll go up into the Grand Canyon. We'll ride through there. We'll go up and around 89 up to Jacobs Lake, and then back to Vegas." And I was like, "All right. Well, I'm not doing anything else. That sounds fun." This was October, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it's right around there.
So, like in Vegas, it was still good riding weather, no biggie. Well, I think I got down there and I was waiting for Case to get off of work, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think I was just getting off work, and I just remember just packing up, trying to get the Katana ready to go. Well, I was riding a 1989 Suzuki Katana 600, probably my favorite bike I've ridden, just for the fact that I was so comfortable riding that thing. I know it's weird, but it was very slow. But I mean,
slow.
My dad said, or King Ugly says, that watching me go through the corners on that bike was just nuts because I got so low on every corner.
Fact.
No chicken. He didn't have any chicken strips. That's for sure.
Well, and I mean, think about it. When you're like playing Forza or something, and it's the slower cars that you can get more technical with because you're not screaming around a corner, right? Same thing on a motorcycle.
And that was always Case, because when I had the Busa, Case would always keep up with me in the corners. Like, there's nothing I could do to get him out of it. But as soon as we got in a straight line, it was no question.
So anyway, we were waiting for Case to load up. I think we all got ready to go, but by the time we actually left Vegas, it was probably 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night.
No,
did you guys trailer him out there, or did you ride?
We rode the whole way.
I think it was closer to 6 there, Lonnon. I think it was 6 o'clock because I know we stopped in Kingman for dinner that night around 8.
That's right. Okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, but so we didn't get to Williams until like 11:30 or something like that. But so we stop and we get on the road, and Dad's sick, so he decides not to go with us, and he's like, "I'll just meet you at Jacobs Lake, and we'll do the North Rim together, and that'll be great, and we'll have fun doing that." It's like, "All right, we'll do that." And so me and Case head out, and we're just, between freaking Vegas and Kingman, probably right after the Hoover Dam. I know both of us were on it for a while. I know there was a couple times I was doing over 120. I know Case was trying to keep up.
That was hard.
Yeah, well,
right on the boost, it was not hard.
And honestly, I think I was going as fast as I possibly could. Just to keep up with you a couple times, but I think we were well into the 100 miles an hour, just cruising at 100 miles an hour.
But that's so easy on a bike. You think of the R1, and I could go 94 miles an hour in first gear.
Exactly. It was just a cruising speed. We were passing people left and right, keeping our, Dad always taught us to look as far ahead as we could, so we were watching for cops. Because in the state of Arizona, I don't know if you guys know this, but anything over 10 miles an hour over is reckless driving, and you can be thrown in jail for it.
So if you're going to go over, might as well just go way over.
Yeah, basically, if you're going to be 10 over, you have a chance of reckless driving and being thrown in jail. So yeah, you might as well be. So anyway, so we get to Kingman, we eat. I think we ate it In-N-Out, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then so we get back on the bikes, and it's probably by the time we get out of there, I'd say what 7:30ish. And at Kingman,
Seven.
it's still good and warm.
Yeah, but it was right after that is where this trip just got miserable.
Miserable because if people don't know the way to Flagstaff and Williams and the Grand Canyon, outside of Kingman, you're just going uphill the whole time. It's just a constant uphill battle. I mean, yes, you have ups and downs, but the majority of it, I mean, you're going from, if I remember correctly, it's something like 2,700 feet to just shy of a mile. And so it starts getting fairly cold.
Fairly
Rather
cold.
quickly.
I think that's a little bit of an understatement there. It was freezing, legitimately 30 degrees, and all we have on, I have just a basic leather jacket and jeans for now.
And that's all I had. We stopped. I think it was 32 miles outside of Williams. I can't remember the name of the town. Both of us are just like shivering. We are so cold, like trying to warm ourselves up. I mean, it was just ridiculously cold.
I mean, I literally was hugging the exhaust pipe just to get warm. Like I couldn't touch it anymore because it was burning through my gloves.
Right. So we pull over. We're half an hour outside of Williams, basically. Well, half an hour if you're driving 60. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just go as fast as we can because I'm so cold. I'd rather be super cold for a less amount of time than really cold for 30 minutes. I'd rather cut that time in half or less. So we're booking it. I don't know how fast we made it. I don't think it was anything over about 15 minutes. It was probably closer to 12. That we got from whatever this town was to Williams and to the hotel that Dad had booked. And both of us just, I think we both got there. Yeah, I mean, like frozen to the bone cold.
What time of year was this?
This was in October.
Huh, yeah. Nice here, freezing there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, we both we fought over who got to take a shower first to get warmed up, and man, that night was just trying to get as warm as we possibly could. But yeah, that was a very interesting ride.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I had never ridden in that cold of an environment, and I don't ever want to again if I don't have to. That's for sure.
Agreed.
Every day I went to work on the boost, and I smiled every day on the way there.
Well, that's a 15-minute ride. We were on the road for 3 hours at that point.
I agree, but I'm just stating that one during the winter time, because I had to ride my bike all during the winter, and I enjoyed it every day. Now,
yeah,
I prepared for it as well.
Totally different. Yes, exactly. Because I drove my CBR like all the time in Vegas through the winter.
You also had sun, and there was no sun.
No,
like
this was in the morning because you got to remember I had to be at work at 7:00 in the morning.
So what about the next day after you guys got all warmed up and you got all nice and cuddly? Not cuddly, but the next day.
Yeah, there's two different beds. Like we made sure we did the bed dance, where you're just trying to get the whole bed warm and keep yourself warm. So the next day we go to this little diner right next to this hole in the wall motel that Dad had booked. We sit down and I think we get out of there. It was probably 8:30 or 9:00, right?
Yeah, it was pretty early in the morning. I mean, we don't sleep in.
So we go and we eat pretty quickly, get on the road. We head up to the Grand Canyon and we're driving around and it's still freaking freezing, literally.
But very pretty. I remember just riding through there and just being awed by just everything through there.
Yeah, it was really, really pretty. I mean, well, and real quick, I mean, we talked to Dad before we left Williams because there's not a lot of signal in the Grand Canyon area. We're at that time at least, and so we drive around the Grand Canyon a little bit, and then we get on the 89A, and we head out heading up toward the north rim of the Grand Canyon toward Jacobs Lake. And if I remember correctly, there was another group out there, and we were kind of following them for quite a while, right, Case?
Yeah, we followed them for over 50 miles at least.
Actually, and now that I think about it, I lost my wallet out there too.
Oh, I told you because we stopped at one of those little shacks to buy some trinkets. And I've totally forgot about that. You didn't have your wallet back for forever.
Yeah, we had to go get gas, and I think you ended up having to pay. You had some cash, and so you paid for the gas. I didn't have anything. Like there was no way for me to pay for the fuel and the bike.
I totally forgot. No, didn't we have to call Dad to get a card?
No, it was there was cash because we met Dad in.
I think it's because Dad actually gave me cash for emergencies. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we met Dad in Jacobs Lake, and I mean, like, really awesome riding. I don't know if anybody's ever driven the 89A, or just the 89 in general, but it's just lots of back and forth turns and just gorgeous scenery. Super fun drive. Like I love it. It's one of my favorite drives to do. To be honest with you, I love the stopping for the Indian jewelry and it's just a great drive. So we get to Jacobs Lake with Dad, and that night we stay at the Jacobs Lake Motel and
gorge ourselves on delicious banana cream pie
and coconut cream pie, both of it.
Oh, so good!
It was funny because we each got a piece, and then we bought the rest of what they had that left. Like everything they had left, we bought it because that's what it was breakfast this next morning.
So good! It was breakfast and lunch and dinner wherever we can eat it. We ate pie.
Yeah, and there was also a really cool Navajo painting and history lesson that we went to that night. It was really cool. It was just interesting, you know. I didn't know Anasazi meant enemies of my ancestor. It's not a freaking tribe. So we get up the next morning and we head into the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which is, I mean, from Jacobs Lake, it's still 60 miles if I remember correctly. And again, so the north rim of the Grand Canyon is even higher than the south rim by almost, if I remember correctly, it's almost a mile. It's at
that
least
much different.
Yeah, it's at least 3,000 feet, if not higher. So I mean, if I remember correctly, at the rim you're close to 9,000 feet, 8 to 9,000 feet. Where on the other side, you're about 40 something hundred feet, depending. I mean, up to a mile.
So it's cold. Guys, it's cold.
Even colder than the other day, but at least again we still have the sun, and it was a warmer day that day. So I mean, it was still really fun to drive, and we drive all around, and we're looking at the north rim of Grand Canyon, and we decide we've got to head out because we got to get home. And so if I remember correctly, I'm following
me, and
Case,
I'm following Dad.
Case is following Dad. And,
hey, wait a second. When did you guys meet up with Dad?
In Jacobs Lake.
Jacobs Lake.
The night before.
Okay.
And so a whole, I mean, if you will, monkey see, monkey do.
It was a beautiful corner that we all screwed up on. There was leaves because it's that time of year on the ground, and I saw that we were all going way too fast around this corner.
What? No.
No. Yeah. So I see Dad, his bike slip and go underneath, and he goes over the embankment, and I'm like, crap. I tried slamming on my brakes, and I lay my bike sideways and basically right on top of it over the embankment. And Lonnon, having enough time and being in a far superior motorcycle, was able to stop, but you laid it down, right?
It got laid down right at the very end. I locked my back tire up. Yeah, just enough that right from underneath me. If I wouldn't have been onto my back brake as hard as I was, I'd have been fine. But there's nothing I could do.
Hey, I'd rather you just put it down for a second than go like me and Dad. Dad got the worst of it. He fell probably about 20, 25 feet over this embankment, got knocked unconscious. I went over. The bike went down, but I stayed up on top of the road. And this is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there is no one on the road from what I remember.
There wasn't anybody on the road. I mean, there was, but not at that time. Like we'd gotten far enough ahead of people that there wasn't anybody there. So, I mean, luckily I didn't get really hurt. I don't remember if you really got hurt either.
Just my ankle. I thought I broke my ankle, but it was just road rash. But Dad was the main thing with his concussion, and he got hit hard.
Yeah, so we got back. I mean, we had to get Dad's bike out of that brush and back up the hill. So that was the first.
Which is probably the heaviest of all of the bikes you guys have. I mean, it's the bike I currently own, and
No.
that bike weighs 700 pounds. No, you had the GS
It was the
1100E.
Warrior.
No.
He was on the
Nope.
GS 1100E.
It was on 1100 because there's more to that story on why I know that.
I swear he was on his Warrior, but maybe
It was
not.
1100.
Okay.
No, because if he was on his Warrior, he made that corner.
All right. Well, then maybe I just forgot. I don't remember either way.
He was
obviously.
definitely on the Katana. I just remember because his helmet matched his bike, and he was wearing a red helmet.
Yeah, it was pre-Katana because that's why he made it the Katana, is because you destroyed the tank and all the fairings on the bike.
Got you. Okay, I remember now. Got you. Okay. So either way, so Dad goes over, so we have to get that bike up the hill, back up the embankment. That was a task to be. I mean, it was a good thing I was still as strong as I was then, and
Well,
Case
I mean,
was much of a help.
This bike
Case
weighs
was much of a help.
700 pounds. I think that's what it weighs, 750 pounds.
It's obviously not a light bike by any means. I mean, my Katana was probably 500 pounds, 400 pounds. So it was not that big of a deal to get out, but Dad's was not fun, especially with him being as hurt as he was. So we finally get our bikes back up on the embankment, check over our injuries, check over the bikes, make sure that we're good. But at this point, we know we're going to have to get rescued, and that's where Griff comes in.
Uh-huh.
So
yes.
You can go ahead and elaborate, Griff.
So I got a phone call, I don't know, before that, I don't remember exactly when, and Case is like, hey, can you come pick us up? And I'm like, yeah, sure, what's wrong? He's like, well, me, Dad, and Lonnon all crashed. I'm like, okay, well, I'm 5 hours away from there. And so they were like, okay, well, we'll ride and meet somewhere, wherever it is. And that happened to be St. George. I don't know exactly why, because I think I was still at work, and so I couldn't leave until I got off work. They were 2 in the morning. I mean, this was like 2 in the afternoon, and the reason I didn't go on this trip is because I had to work. And so I start heading there and meet them at In-N-Out in St. George.
if you couldn't tell, we all like In-N-Out Burger. That's twice in 3 days if you're keeping count.
Well, and it's not just that. I mean, like that was the easiest place for him to come get us, and we knew we could get to that point, but we all knew we were done. Like we just couldn't go anymore.
How screwed up were the bikes, guys? I mean, Dad went over an embankment where the forks twisted or anything like that on him?
No, his bike was still drivable, and I guess that's here's the story of my side of that is that they got to In-N-Out, and we didn't have any straps because this was me just hurrying to get there, and I forgot to grab straps, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll go over to Walmart, which is literally across the street, and I didn't know that, and so I went and was cruising up the road, faster than I should have been, and there was no speedometer because Dad had broken it when he got in this accident, and I got pulled over for doing 75 on a 35-mile-an-hour road.
I didn't know about
my
that.
gosh, wow.
Yeah, and it was because I went up and I'm like, I'm lost, and so I turned around and got on it hard, like really, like 2 gears hard, and the cop passed me going the other direction. And so he pulled me over, and I'm like, he goes, do you know what pulled you over? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how fast I was going. My dad wrecked his bike, and I was just headed to Walmart to pick up straps, and I don't know where Walmart is. They just told me it was on the embankment. And the cop's like, well, you were going significantly over the speed limit. He's like, and it sounded like you were getting on it pretty hard. I'm like, yeah, it's just loud. And the cop's like, well, he's like, I'm not going to ticket you because you're wearing a helmet.
No way.
Oh, heck yeah.
I'm like, well, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh, I forgot. This is Utah. You don't have to wear a helmet. And I'm like, I was looking for Walmart. He goes, well, where were you at? And I'm like, In-N-Out. And he goes, yeah, it's right across the street. And I'm like, no, it's not. He goes, like, no, seriously, it's right across the street from In-N-Out, like the other parking lot. And I'm like, no, like there's a Home Depot, but I didn't see a Walmart. I literally saw the Home Depot, didn't see the Walmart. That the road separates it, and not a road.
No, it's exactly in the same complex.
Yes.
I'm there quite often.
Yeah, and so I ended up going. The cop didn't give me a ticket. He said, "Thanks for wearing a helmet." He's like, "You don't live here," and basically just slow it down. And I'm like, "Okay, cool." Did so.
You so lucky.
That was no motorcycles license.
We should totally do pullover stories where we got out of tickets.
Yeah, I can't do a single one.
I wouldn't be able to do very many.
I only
I've
have
got a
got
lot of
lots.
pullover stories, though. I have a lot of pullover stories.
I only have one other, and that was also another speeding, and I also got out of that ticket as well.
All right, so yeah, Griff picked us up in St. George. We get the bike strapped down. Like if I remember correctly, Griff drives us back, and I'm sure he's exhausted, but I know pretty much all three of us passed out on the way.
Oh
home.
yeah, I was
'Cause,
out by the time we hit
It was
Mesquite. I think I was out before we hit Mesquite.
yeah. I mean, I was probably awake the longest, but I know it was like after you do an accident like that, it just wears you out. Not only that, but again, getting that freaking bike up that embankment, that wore me out as well. It was just a crazy, crazy day. So, I mean, I guess that's pretty much the story. That's where it ends.
And we get back. So I broke the plastics. We just put brand new red plastics that Griff bought for that Katana because this was his bike. And so we get back, broke all the plastics on it, end up replacing the plastic back with the flat black ones we had. And then we ended up selling that bike, I think, like 6 months later.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then with the GS 1100, Baron owns it, like you said, which has now been Katana-ified.
So that one was, I guess they robbed the parts off of a 600 Katana. I was on my mission when all of this happened, but it's a pretty bike now. I like it a lot. But
Yeah, we'll definitely get some pictures put up on our Instagram and Facebook so you guys can look at these things.
So cool. Well, I'm going to hand the story over to Dane here for a minute because I know he's probably got more accidents than all of us combined, and a lot of his are pretty epic. So, Dane, go ahead and take it away on your story.
So yeah, I have quite a few accidents on motorcycles, and I think we're going to be mainly talking about street bikes tonight. But I think I have 6 accidents on street bikes, and one of them was my fault, and I will talk about that one right now. So it was our cousin Elijah's wedding, and his wife, they just got married, and this was during the day before the reception at night. So we were all just hanging out at his wife's house, parents' house, and they lived in this cul-de-sac, and I brought my CBR 900, 1993 CBR 900. I think I'd had it for like 3 months at this point. This was my first accident on it. But anyway, so as Jensens, we like to do things and pull wheelies and things like that.
We are definitely the show-offy type.
Yep. So
I am not.
not anymore. It's like I wasn't showy offy after I lit myself on fire. You weren't
Details.
showy offy after you pulled the bike over on top of yourself. Anyway, so I was, we were all just hanging out before the reception. This was, early afternoon, probably like noon, maybe 1, and we were having a luncheon at Elijah's wife's mom's house, and she lived in a cul-de-sac. And they've been, saying, Dane, go out and pull some wheelies. Go pull some wheelies. I think Elijah was probably one of the big instigators. Case, you were probably, telling me to do it too.
Definitely. I was your biggest fan back then.
Back then, thanks. Just kidding. So.
Shut up. You know I love you.
I know. So, it didn't take much convincing for me to go out and pull wheelies. I love pulling wheelies on motorcycles, and I love jumping motorcycles, dirt bikes, not street bikes. But so they lived in a cul-de-sac, and the one of the best things about my CBR is it just came into the power so quick. At 3,200 RPMs, you could just floor it, and it would come right up in a wheelie, and you could ride that thing forever. But I was I'd pulled it up a couple of times, 3 or 4 times, and getting a little more brave each time. And so this last time, I held it in a wheelie for a pretty long time. I could ride a wheelie. Case what on the freeway, I could probably go a mile or so, 2 miles maybe.
Yeah, I just remember you going through the first 4 gears on your Yamaha when you had it.
Yeah. So, and that's on the freeway, not in a cul-de-sac. But so I was pretty good at pulling wheelies, but this last one, I pulled it up way too long because I was showing off, and by the time I set it down, I couldn't stop. Well, obviously, at the end of a cul-de-sac, you got houses, and there's sidewalk and curb, and so I hit the curb, and I don't think I did really any damage to my bike, but the momentum caught me going forward, and I hit my knee into a half cinder block wall and just split it right open. Um, it was, I mean, there was, Case, you said it, there was a hole in my knee.
Yeah, it was disgusting to look at. I just remember walking out there. It looked like a cube had been taken out of his leg.
Yep, and it's on my right leg, and so I was just bleeding all over the place, and I couldn't get the bleeding to stop, and I couldn't go to the ER because I was Elijah's best man, and I had to be there for the wedding reception. So I just, wrapped it up and put a whole bunch of gauze on it, and I mean, it bled through the gauze, bled into my tux, all down my leg. My sock was red from the blood. I mean, it just never stopped bleeding. And so finally, after the reception, everything was over. This was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, I've got to go to the ER. Well, I went to the ER, and they gave me...
Did you ride there?
Yeah, that was my only vehicle at the time, was my R1. Or sorry, my CBR. So that was my only vehicle. I don't think I did because somebody was with me. I don't remember who was with me, but somebody was with me. I think it was Mom. Mom took me. And so we were sitting in the ER, and they finally, come look at it and do x-rays, and everything inside was fine, but there was just, a big hole taken out of my knee. And I had cut a nerve, and still to this day, I mean, this was almost 20 years ago, still to this day, the cut was on the inside bottom part of my knee, and I still can't feel the outside probably 4 inches of my knee on the lateral side. So, but yeah, they sewed it up, gave me 4 stitches in 3 layers, 4 stitches each. So I got 12 stitches, and couldn't bend my leg for quite a while because they were scared that the stitches were going to pull out just based on where it was. And so yeah, that was my first accident on a street bike. And
I remember the sticker you got from that one. It said "Stupid Hurts."
Yeah, and it was on a Band-Aid.
And it fit so
great.
well.
Yeah, so Stupid Hurts. But so little information for you guys. Do you guys know the average amount of time a person wrecks a motorcycle?
No.
No idea.
After they get it? 3 months. And I believe, let's see, motorcycles I've wrecked, I believe every first wreck was right within that 3 to 4 month period.
Well, I think that just because at that point you start getting more comfortable.
Exactly.
And maybe overconfident.
Exactly. Yep. But yeah, that was my first wreck on a street bike.
Daggum.
Yeah,
Nice.
no bueno. But hey, at least you wrecked good. You have a good story. Well, I guess we'll move back down to the next oldest brother, Lonnon. I guess you've got a couple. What's your next one?
It's not a street bike. It's a 4-wheeler story. It's probably the best one that I have after that is when I was, what do you think, Dane, 8 or 9? Is I even that old?
I was going into 4th grade, so it was the summer before we moved to Twin, and it was the day before, or the 3 days before school started. Dad took us camping.
Okay, so then, yeah, that's right, because I didn't get a ride for most of the time when we were in Twin for the first part. So we were out at, if I remember correctly, Dad called it Jamestown in Nevada. And I had brought a friend of mine out there, and we were riding the Honda 200, which isn't the Speed Demon. has terrible suspension. I mean, shocker, it's a Honda. And
Yep.
I was going way too fast. I mean, way too fast. And I ended up rolling this four-wheeler. Well, I hit this. I hit something. It ended up in the air, rolled, and it pinned me and this kid between literally a rock and a hard place. The hard place was the four-wheeler. And so, I'm trying to push this thing off, and it's got to weigh 300 or 400 pounds. And again,
more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it was
It's
a
a Honda.
heavy, heavy beast. And, so I couldn't get it off myself. We were trying to push the whole time. I'm getting burned. I
We all
remember
thought you were dead.
Yeah, they all
That's
thought
why
I was-
Dad freaked out.
And,
Wait, is this the story where Dad thought? Well, said he saw you fly through the air and
the four-wheeler in the
didn't
air,
land?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that would be the story. I don't know any of that. All I know is I've heard it, from other people, but I know that I ended up pinned between that rock and that four-wheeler, and I couldn't get it off, and the exhaust pipe was burning me. And I remember Dad coming over and basically just yanking the four-wheeler out of the way and kind of tossing it out of the way. I mean, maybe, I'm sure his adrenaline was going like crazy, so it wouldn't surprise me if he would have thrown it. But the thing weighed a ton. And he takes us back to camp, and I get grounded from four-wheelers for a year. And when most parents say you get grounded for something for a year, they don't really mean it. It was 1 year to the freaking day that I was grounded.
well,
To
in
the
particular, Dad was never good at following through with grounding anybody to anything. So the fact that he actually followed through on that one's amazing.
At least for us, because I agree with Baroni. Dad was not very there for most of our groundings.
Well, he'd
Well-
forget.
For us, it was. I mean, you think about it now. You guys think about your kids. You want to go do things with your kids and have fun with your kids, right? And if they're grounded from something you love to do and you want to take them, I mean, that's usually why he didn't follow through on that kind of thing. But with this, yeah, we were all surprised that. I mean, he stuck to it.
Yeah, it sucked. It sucked because I loved riding four-wheelers. I was always on some sort of four-wheeler. Always. Like, I was home and I was on the four-wheeler. I mean, I hear stories about how I used to run over the dog with a little 50, and we didn't have an 80. So I went from a 50 to a 200. I think. I don't think we had an 80 at that point, did we, Dane?
No, because I was riding the Warrior then.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, actually, you're right, because it was the Warrior at that point that Dad had. And so, yeah, that's my other main wreck. I've got one other one of Dad's again. But I think we'll pass it on to probably Griff.
I think Griff, go with yours. I know you've got two good ones.
Yeah, one was okay. It was Dad had just put carbs, and well, actually, I just put carbs onto Baron's bike. Actually, the 1150 that was 1100 was already wrecked. That one was literally I flipped over the bike when I was coming out of the gate because the throttle stuck on it. I wouldn't say
No,
that
the
was.
bike flipped over you.
Yeah, I actually just fell off. I don't remember it flipping on me. Maybe it did, but it happened like literally right next to the house.
You wheelied over is what he did.
Yeah, the
Well-
throttle's on it.
So you just drove out of the gate? Because we lived in a gated community. We were 3 houses up from the gate, and you just pulled out and just went to go give it everything it had, and it just came right over on you?
No, like I literally got to the edge of the gate, and the gate opened, and I hit the gas, and it full throttled
Scary.
and flipped up over me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that one was that scary. My other one, which was probably my real first accident that scared me enough that I don't really ride motorcycles anymore, was
Which
we
is so
were-
sad because he has one of the best looking GS 1150s ever.
A full fairing bike, and he doesn't ride it.
Yeah. So I was driving to so I had just got the bike fixed. It had something wrong with it. And I don't remember what it was, but I'd gone through all the wiring. I'd done a bunch of stuff to it, and went to go drive and get out. I got into the motorcycle, and was headed out the door. And I get out my neighborhood, and I'm like, I have this idea. I should just go grab my leather jacket, because this is a pretty warm day. This is Vegas, so it's always pretty warm. And I go back, grab my jacket, head to Harbor Freight because I needed gloves, and I didn't have any gloves with me. And went and picked up gloves, and coming out of
that was a cardinal rule when you rode motorcycles at our house. You wear gloves and leather jacket, period.
And helmet.
Yeah, sorry, and a helmet. Yeah. That's not something I figured I'd have to mention, but yes, a helmet.
And I always had a helmet, so I went and grabbed gloves. And I'd ridden the bike quite a bit, but this is the first time I had ridden it since I fixed it. And I pulled out of Harbor Freight, and I got on it 1-2 gear shift, which is about 70 miles an hour. And I used to be able to just sit up on third gear and just I could nail it, and it wouldn't really do anything. It just kind of keep going. Well, this particular time, I nailed it I was in third gear and hit it, and it had enough power. I slid off the back of the bike, like literally slid off of it.
So it ran away from you, like literally.
Did it hit anything?
Griffy.
Oh, sorry. This was on Sunset Road. It was pretty late at night when this happened, and so the road was really clear. Because usually I didn't get on it unless it was really clear. I've never been a confident motorcycle rider. I've always been mediocre. And so it gets out from underneath me. I literally fall off of it, and I immediately jump up off the ground after I'd slid on the ground, from 75 miles an hour, and run up, grab my bike, because I don't have a motorcycle license. I don't even think the bike was registered or insured or anything, because it never really was. And so I get into the parking lot. Well, I get in the parking lot, go, okay, well, I'm got road rash, like I'm hurting. I'm gonna go into Jack in the Box and go get cleaned up. And so I call Case in between this, and Case is an hour drive away from me because he lived in Timbuktu, called North Las Vegas. And so
South Reno, sir.
Yeah.
Might as well be.
South Reno. And I had a truck, but I didn't have a way of getting it, and I wasn't going to call my wife to come pick me up.
Didn't you send me to get your truck for you?
Yes, you went and got my truck. You drove all the way there and drove all the way to pick me up, and I never called my wife, and my wife was literally at my in-laws' house, which was 3 blocks away from my house, and I was like, nope, not calling her. And so I'm waiting for Case to get there, and I go scrub all of my I go into Jack in the Box after I'd wrecked, and I go and scrub everything out, road rash and everything. And someone had called in the ambulance on me, and they show up, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I've already scrubbed all my road rash." And so Case picks me up, and we put it back in the truck. And I literally put it in the back of the truck, drive to the house, leave it in the back of the truck for I think a couple weeks. Like I'm just like, nope, don't want to play with it. And that was my last bad dirt.
That was a huge accident for you, and it still makes me sad today because, like I said, I always like riding with Griffey a lot, and it just sucks that you don't ride anymore.
It scared me. That was probably what really did it. Is that was my first one that like I truly came off that bike and I was hurt. Like I couldn't walk for a few. Like I was like on almost crutches for a few days because I had screwed up my knee. Like I brought my knee clear to the almost to the bone. Luckily I had just bought gloves because I literally wore my gloves all the way out. They had just touched my skin when I had stopped sliding. And I'd put a leather jacket on, and it scrubbed the leather jacket all the way through the leather jacket to boot. It was a pretty rough wreck. That one pretty much put me to the edge. I had ridden since then. I still ride. I'd probably still ride if I had other people to go ride with, but it always seems to. But when I get my bike running, someone else's bike is broken.
Yep, I feel you.
It's only been 2 years. Sorry about that, Griff.
I'm a social rider. I don't. I,
It's way
I'm
more
a
fun
social
to ride with
smoker.
everybody else
yes, I
than it is
don't.
by yourself. It's boring to ride by yourself.
I don't hate motorcycles. I just they don't get any better mileage. I've always been the one that give me a really good handling car, and I think I have more fun than in a motorcycle because Dad did such a good job of ruining motorcycles for me.
Scaring you.
No
into not
matter
riding?
whose fault it is, you lose.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was always my issue. Is that what's always scared me? And I mean, I've ridden and I've gotten on other bikes to ride, and that's where the Busa was always so much fun for me. Is because the Busa, I was too comfortable on it. I would say. I mean, that was a bike that to this day I still
Okay,
remember
let's just
waking up and going to
let's
ride
just
it.
let's just mention just one by one the top speed you hit on the Busa. I did 180 miles an hour.
I did 200 driving to Pahrump at night. I was out running my headlight at 150, and I pushed it until it tacked out on sixth gear.
I didn't realize you hit 2. That's crazy.
Yeah.
184 on the R1.
I think the
It-
fastest I got was 178.
And then Baron's a loser and never rode it.
I'm at 0 on the Busa. I'm the fastest I've ever been on any motorcycle is 135. I think is what my motorcycle tops out at.
It'll do 150. I brought it there.
Okay, well I was topped out at 7,000 or 8,000 RPMs on my bike.
Yeah, and I the fastest I've been on I did 150 on the 1100. I've done 150 on my 1150, and like a Busa at 200 is less scary than those bikes at 120.
Well, they
Like
get
those-
a death wobble. I mean, my bike at 120 would get a death wobble, at least as much as I could tell. It would just start wobbling on its own, and it was really hard to control.
Here's what blew me away: is how long it takes you to change lanes going that fast. Did you guys ever try?
No, this was literally I was just like, I'm driving to Pahrump. Let's see what I can do. I've never gone. I'm going to see how fast I can go, and that's literally what my thought
Plus-
process was.
The straightaway going out to Pahrump, you get up and over the hill, and it's just like straight. You get
Straight
down to the bottom of that
forever.
curve, and then it just straight for. Gosh, it's got to be
That's
30 miles.
that's where the new Koenigsegg broke the world record, correct?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a Koenigsegg, but it's one of the top speed cars. They beat the world speed record on that
318
road.
miles an hour.
On that road.
I believe it. It's flat. It's a really well built road, and straight as an arrow.
And boring as
I
all
believe
crap
it.
to drive at speed limit.
Yep. So
Eh.
I gotta jump in here and talk about. I mean, I didn't get hurt like Griffey did on my last accident, but I definitely think I wrecked the most expensive bike we ever owned.
I would agree with you. Almost definitely.
Borrowed? You mean borrowed?
Yeah, borrowed
Bar-
bike.
Yeah, we couldn't afford this. We were storing a couple of motorcycles for Dad's business partner, and so we had it was a big dog chopper with an S&S motor in it. So this thing is worth $50,000 roughly. So I mean, custom paint job, custom chrome
Well,
everywhere.
I mean, to go over the paint job on this bike, it's bright yellow, and then it looks like these skulls are like embedded down into the paint. You can like see into it like 5 feet, and these skulls are like being ripped and torn out of the paint. I mean, this is a really nice custom paint job.
I mean, it was just a really, really, in my opinion, over the top motorcycle. It was a show quality motorcycle. So we
Wipe it with a diaper. Don't drive it because it doesn't handle worth a freaking darn.
Well,
Yeah,
and it was a hardtail, and
yeah, and it took you a city block to turn around.
Yeah.
And so we, for some odd reason, we all decided to go out to get frozen custard at Nielsen's. And Nielsen's frozen custard, it's delicious.
this is still when they were in at right next to Cafe Rio on Eastern, right?
Yes, yep. And so we all decided to jump on motorcycles and head out over there. And so I am following everybody, pulling to the little shopping center that Nielsen's is in, and it's a concrete entryway. And this isn't a a huge thing, but there was a car that pulled up that I was, like I said, this thing takes forever to turn. And so it doesn't, so I had to happen to maneuver quickly to not hit this car and end up laying this bike down. I mean, I was going maybe 10 miles an hour, if that. So I didn't get hurt, but we scratched the paint on the fender and also the tank. So on this paint job that Baron described.
Well, and totally ruined the pipes. We had to. Well, go ahead, but totally ruined the pipes.
So it was more of an ego thing and a really, really, really expensive mistake. And at this time, I didn't have I still don't have my motorcycle license, but I've been riding bikes since I was like 12. But it was just a really dumb mistake, and that's the reason why I will never ride a chopper ever again, just for that fact that I just can't maneuver the way that I can on a sports bike or a crotch rocket or whatever you call it.
Luckily, we were able to get
even Dad's Warrior handled decently.
Far. I love Dad's Warrior. If I was looking for a comfortable cruising bike that handled well all day, that Warrior, absolutely.
Yeah, it was great.
So yeah, that was just my second accident. That's all I have on motorcycles.
I think we're all out of time for tonight, guys. But look us up on our Instagram feed, and then send us any requests that you'd like to listen to. We're more than eager to figure out what you guys want to hear about our lives. And we're going to post these pictures as soon as we can because we've got a lot of motorcycle pictures. It's probably the thing that we had the most pictures of. So stay ugly.